you want more of the conventional wisdom on sales and growing revenue, this podcast isn't for you. Throw away your closing tactics, tricks, and tips and learn what the top 1% income earners do to create results. This is the On Purpose Growth Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, back to this next episode of the On Purpose Growth Podcast. My name is Brian McDonald from On Purpose Growth, and today I got a really special guest, a longtime friend, Tim from the Pepper Group. He's got a marketing company. I'm going to let him, dive into all that stuff and his background. But what we're going to talk about today is entrepreneurship as a game of survival. And Tim and I were just talking about this, and this is going to be really interesting because everybody thinks that entrepreneurship is this great thing that is all roses and sunshine. But we were even just talking about burning ships, so the complete opposite. So Tim, thanks for being on, man. And why don't you give a little bit of background of you and your company, and then we'll go into this journey of survival.
Well, thanks, Brian. I'm excited to be here and talk about my favorite subject. I have survived, so it has a happy ending. But it's also a process, so I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But really, I guess my journey was one of being a pretty good student and not a great student, and learning at an early age through college. I kind of changed majors from being more of a pre-business major to being a communication and graphic design major. It allowed me to use my hands. It was something that I discovered only through the process, that I wanted to have something that was measurable when I got done with it, not just a spreadsheet and some theories. And I really found myself in doing that. Plus, I think I always had an appreciation for the arts and all of its forms. So to be able to do that professionally was a real bonus for me. Now, that being said, that's what I went to school for. And of course, I got out of school and I was putting together my portfolio to go out and interview, and putting in some part-time work in a warehouse for a company that sold hardwood flooring and paneling.
Ooh.
And one day, the manager for sales came in and said, "Hey, so-and-so just quit. Do you want the job?" And I kind of laughed at him. I said, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Well, you know the product line. My mom had worked at that company for years, and they always found some work for us to do when we were on break and things like that. And they said, come in for a few days while you're putting your portfolio together." I always needed spending money. Nobody was giving it to me. So that's why I was even there at the right time, right place. And he said, well, it comes with $13,000 a year and a new car.
Oh.
And so I didn't have wheels at the time. So that was a big, big incentive for me, especially when they covered all the insurance and gas and everything else, because $13,000 a year, well, very generous in that day. It was about the same as I would have probably earned doing graphic design full time.
Okay.
But it did kind of resonated in my head when my dad used to say, if you learn how to sell something, you'll never want for a job, because very few people do it well. And so it gave me an opportunity to learn from some pretty good salespeople at that company, and to put those practices to work and get more comfortable with myself. I mean, when you're 22, 23 years old, you might think you're hot stink, but by the time you get out in the real world, you realize that's not really the truth anymore.
No.
And so I did that for 4 years, and then I went into selling printing. So that was kind of being a good liaison between the design side of things and then the manufacturing side of it. And people warmed up to that. And I sold printing for a couple of years with a printing company. And then I followed my sales manager from that company to another company. And I got in there when they had 50 people. And by the time I left 6 years later, there was 190 people in the company. And I've been lucky enough to do a variety of things. And I kind of found myself at a crossroads. They were going more in the direction of quantity, and I was a quality guy. And so we had kind of gone together as long as we could. and I didn't see myself ascending past where I was. I was in the top 3 people in the company, but it really did give me a lot of chances to project manage things, to process design things. I spent a year and a half implementing total quality management, statistical process controls, all of which I probably would have avoided had I not been asked and in the right place at the right time to do it. And it gave me a chance to learn about Deming. If anyone out there knows about W. Edwards Deming, what he brought to modern manufacturing and process is amazing and so easy. All great things are simple. Of course, when they're done, they look simple, but it takes a long way to get there. And so at that turning point, I had to decide, am I going to go work for someone else, or am I going to try and do my own thing? And I think the idea of working for someone else was one of those things where my breadth of knowledge was very wide, and every place that I interviewed, there was a narrow channel within that breadth of knowledge that they wanted me to do something. And I kept thinking, it's more fun to do all this stuff.
Right.
And how can I do all that stuff except for maybe be a complete idiot and start an agency after having never worked in one? What was I thinking? There was just too many things that a normal person would be afraid of, but I wasn't encumbered by this is how it's always been done, or this is how we do it here. I really didn't know how to do it, other than we have to create some form of communication. We have to get an audience to do something that our client wants them to do. And how we get there is so much fun that even if it's, drawing on the emotions or common sense or whatever those triggers are that we can move people with, it's unending. There's always some particular way you can do that. And of course, I think early on, I was an entrepreneur. All the companies that I worked at going forward, on the inside, I would act like an entrepreneur. I would ask for forgiveness more often than permission. But luckily, I had some good ideas, and some of them were horrible, and I'm still paying the price for them. So I never discount that. But it gave me the opportunity early on to try things out and not be afraid to do something that's outrageous and outside the norm. And a lot of it had to do with culture in the workplace. I was the guy who started a lunch club. It was for eating bizarre things. So I wanted to be in this lunch club. We would go on a rotating basis that someone different each week would bring in something to eat for everyone else, and it was a total surprise. And it could be everything from turtle soup to snails on crackers to whatever. And it was just really a matter of being exposed to things that you might never have done before. It helps to have the peer pressure around and have some fun doing it. But we actually became kind of part of the tour. I'd start to notice when the salespeople were walking around and we were having lunch, they'd stop and describe, some weird thing that we were doing. But it was things like that, and volunteering and getting out and being social with the people that you work with just seemed like a natural to me. And maybe I got lucky and I was working with a lot of cool people that I wanted to spend time with, but I think that goes hand in hand. You reap what you sow with that, and as long as you want to be involved, you're going to be involved and hopefully have some fun along the way. And so anyway, I started out of the spare bedroom. I just kind of one day got an opportunity. A friend of mine called and said, in essence, if you get down here tomorrow, I got some work for you to do and bring some business cards. Well, at that point in time, I didn't have any business cards. I was still contemplating whether I was going to work for someone else or not. So for the rest of the night, I put together a few business cards and I went down there, and it was the start of enough work for me to justify trying to do something on my own. Overhead wasn't high with the spare bedroom, and I had enough money to buy a few simple pieces of equipment. Now it would be laughable, of course. That was 55 years ago. I spent nearly $9,000 on a printer, a computer that my phone is 10 times better than today,
Crazy.
and a scanner. You know, that was about all you needed to be in business. And I went out and I hustled, and I had a lot of nice contacts already established. One of my jobs when I was working at the previous company was to get people aligned and outsourced, and so I had a lot of contacts in the Chicagoland area in all different phases of the print industry, and they were more than willing to introduce me to a few people who could give me business. And then as soon as I realized that the bedroom, I was outgrowing it, I wanted to move to an office and start adding some people and still go out and hustle. Business development is in my blood somehow. When I was little, my mom would say, "You're either going to be a lawyer or a salesman."
No way.
We didn't have money for law school, so that didn't work
Guess
out.
you're a salesman.
Yeah. And so, but from day one, you know, you talk about survival, and I think that failure was not an option for me. I had too much pride for that. I had the opportunity, the unique opportunity where my wife was making a lot of money at that point in time, and it could definitely carry us enough. I mean, not a lot, but enough. And then we said, let's give it a year. And so I really looked at that as a way to kind of jump into it. And I was a networker before I knew how to spell network. So I was out there, and I did a lot of things wrong, though. It was horrible.
Like what?
You know, well, you know, I would take my eye off the ball sometimes. You know, you think that you're doing well or well enough, and then you say, well, boy, my roots are in design. Maybe I should do a little of that. Well, I get involved in that. Nobody's out selling. And so, you know, those peaks and valleys are what kills you. And back in the day, you know, we were doing kind of small projects. So you had to be out there hustling an awful lot of them to make enough profit to keep growing and of course, surviving. And so I think as we grew, I really wanted to make it a strong culture. And culture wasn't even a word in our business vocabulary 25 years ago. But somehow I knew that it worked, and that when friends work together, they appreciate each other, respect each other, and they go after the problem, not each other. And so whatever it takes to do that, it just seemed natural that we want to do that. And I think another thing was you cannot become complacent. And so one of our core values at Pepper Group is be smarter tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's kind of a command. It's kind of a responsibility if you accept that.
Yeah.
It is something that instead of saying we're a learning organization, we put it into the format of, hey, this is a responsibility. And now let's put some stuff in place so that it triggers that kind of activity. So we have a little statue. In fact, he's on my desk today. I can't believe this. I didn't plan this.
No, okay.
He's right here.
And what is that?
So this is the Higgy.
Okay.
And the Higgy is named after Dave Higgins, a former co-worker of mine.
Okay.
And I've got a long version of the story, but I'm going to give you the short one. He was a gruff, old school biker kind of guy, tradesman. And I was college boy, you know. And we oftentimes would clash, and sometimes we would have great fun playing poker and drinking and doing this and that. And he was a professional, and I think he considered me one. But we could have our run-ins. And one day, I ended up actually being his supervisor. And I said, Dave, you're the most mechanical guy I know. We're getting in this new copier. I think it does everything, staples and folds and makes omelets. I don't know.
Whatever, a lot.
But someone's got to be the person that's the go-to person until we all get used to this thing. So I want you to do the training for it. And by the way, the trainer will be here on Thursday, and her name's Karen. And he gives me the double take because, you know, Karen. And he was old school. I told you, he's just a dirty old man kind of thing. And sure enough, she shows up and she's knockout gorgeous.
Karen, yeah, right.
And now he has to spend, half a day with her, which was really taxing for the old guy. But he came into my room and she taught him something about paper and how it gets put in, how it's manufactured and how it gets put into the printer, and that every ream of paper actually hidden somewhere is an indicator of where the smooth side of that paper is. And when paper's made, the process will have invariably one side that's a little bit coarser than the other side.
Okay.
Not so that most people would notice, but if you really were, in the print industry, you should know this. And so he came in, he was all excited. Maybe it was her in her teaching, but he was excited to learn this simple thing and to share it. And I think that always resonated with me. So when I started Pepper Group and I was looking for ways in which we could support that core value, I created the Higgy, which sits on the corner of someone's desk in the company. And it is an indicator to anyone else who comes into my space this week that they need to teach me something.
Oh.
And we don't care what it is. There's no limitations, no parameters whatsoever. It could be the most complex thing. It could be the most technical thing. It could be how to tie your shoes better. It really doesn't matter, because every nugget of information is going to be potentially leveraged later. And especially in a business like ours, where knowing a little bit about everything is much better than being narrow knowledge based. And so what will happen is invariably throughout the week, someone will walk in and they have something else on their mind, but they'll see the Higgy and they'll say, hey, did you know blah, blah, blah? Or have you ever seen, and they'll come over, grab my mouse and show me some website or something like that. But it is an instigator, right? Dave, that curmudgeonly dude is still working with me.
I love this.
And the funniest thing is that by the end of the week, I've probably got 4, 5, 6 things that people have come and taught me. And then on Monday morning, we have an all-company meeting, and I will bring the Higgy with me. And during our agenda, we'll come to that time where I will say, I learned this from George, and I learned this from Melissa, and I learned this from Todd. But the coolest thing I learned was from Cindy. She showed me blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I will present it to her, and then it will be on her desk for the next week. So this guy has been going around for 23 years.
Wow.
And so I got lucky with that. The only reason I did it in the first place is survival. I've got to have the smartest people around, and we all know different stuff. We just don't know always to give it up and share it with people. So a little mechanism like the Higgy is going to inspire that from time to time. And we once did the math, and there was over 20,000 different learning experiences, because when you consider that when I go into that meeting on Monday, I've got 14 other people sitting around me who may or may not know all those things. And so now I learned them, but now I'm sharing and broadcasting them to other people. So it's not uncommon for someone to say, hey, could you show me that after the meeting? I'd really like to see that.
Well, what I love about this is one thing that you mentioned before is you said you learned how to take risks when you were the entrepreneur. And what I'm seeing and listening is you actually learn how to be innovative in taking risks to survive with something like this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a dopey thing.
Curmudgeon, if you will.
I mean, people could knock this kind of stuff. We don't need that.
Yeah.
Or, another thing Tim comes up with, it'll be gone next week. Well, that's not necessarily true, because I do stick with something until I'm really beaten down and crying for mercy. But I think a lot of things take a while to become a habit. And
Right.
once they become part of the culture, now the surprising thing is as well, if I was to happen to walk down the hall and give someone a piece of advice, after I'm done, if it occurs to me, before I leave their office, I might ask, hey, you don't have the Higgy by chance, do you? Because put that on your list.
Yeah, put that on your list.
I just helped you with something there, you know. And I think another great example of having that survival instinct is that how do I keep people coming to a job and willing to stick their necks out every day? Because we're in a creative world. So almost everything that we do, the client didn't tell us how to do it or what it would look like until we present it to them.
Got it.
And imagine you're in a business where we present 3 concepts. We know 2 will die by design, and we want them to, because that one that remains, we have to go to market with and make it have a return on the investment. But psychologically, we put the same effort into all 3 of those ideas.
Right.
If every day we're going to stick our necks out, and we all do it, whether you're a creative, an account manager, a salesperson, someone who works on the books, we're all trying to figure out ways to do something different, which means risky. And then how do we deal with that? Well, you make it a safe environment. You make it one where everyone outwardly tells you that it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's actually the only way we move forward.
Right.
We have to have 2 things die. They are not mistakes. You did a great job. They probably hit all the parameters of what the client wanted, but they liked this purple one over here instead of this one, or they liked the one that focused on this part of their business rather than this one. And that's just sometimes a personal preference. Really, we could have done it in green and it would have been just as successful. Who knows?
Right.
But at the end of the day, another one of our core values is the strength of the wolf is in the pack. Now, we didn't make that up. Probably everyone has heard that, because you can reverse it too, that the strength of the pack is in each wolf.
Correct.
And so, but in our usage of that, the strength of the wolf is in the pack, is that the pack has to support those wolves. The wolves take the chance. We collectively take a chance sometimes, but usually it's someone's idea that's being pushed forward. And so we have a program called the Kick-Ass, and basically the Kick-Ass is a peer-to-peer recognition program. And okay, I swear I didn't like
another one.
But you know what? If it's part of your culture, it is close by.
It should be, right? It should be.
Reach for. So this is the Kick-Ass sheet.
Got it.
And basically it's a 1/4 page. And all it asks is who's the pepper nominated, by whom, on what day did they achieve this kick-ass behavior, and then what exactly was that behavior. And then below that, you can see our 8 core values.
Yep.
The checkbox next to them.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Allows us to say, what behavior here really, what did it mean to our core values? Was it a part of that? And between 1 and all 8 can be checked, but we're recognizing that our core values keep us on track and allow us to take chances, and that stuff is recognized. Now, we're a company, I said before, 15 people. Every week we get between 15 and 30 of these turned in.
Wow.
And we have this big board in our hallway where we tape them all up, but only after, on that Monday morning meeting, we read each one aloud. We want that person to have public recognition for whatever they did. There's no prize other than there's a little traveling trophy that if you got nominated the most that week, and if there's a tie, we just blindly pick one. You get that on your desk, and it's a little you've seen bobbleheads for sports
Yeah.
figures and stuff.
Right.
Well, this is a bobble ass. So it's a donkey kicking its feet up, and the back end of the donkey goes back and forth.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's playful. It's playful, but
it's a marketing company, and so a creative company, right?
I'll just read you this because this is kind of funny. Our designer from years ago put this together in small print because we love using small print for our own amusement. If you need more room to describe reason, write smaller. Self-nominated nominees will get their ass kicked. Nominations will be voted upon by a panel of prestigious Pepper personnel, not to be confused with the What an Ass Award. So that's our kick-ass program.
Oh my gosh, I love it. The way that the one thing that I love about you, Tim, is the way that you survive is through fun.
It's a hard business.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things is that when you see the finished product, it looks so simple. And that's the whole game, right? That's the art and the science of great communication. You don't want to make it any more complex than it has to be. And we specialize in business-to-business clients, so a lot of their stuff is technical, and a lot of the clients want you to say every single thing about it just so we don't miss anything. And at the end of the day, our purpose statement here is we move people. And it's our job to filter through some of that stuff, sometimes tell the client they're wrong, but show them a great way to do it and then prove out that it's going to work. And that's a constant process that we do. And this being our 25th anniversary.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's freakish to say it because I do remember that spare bedroom and the loneliness that ensued. The lone entrepreneur.
Yeah, right.
But at the end of the day, there's been highs, there's been lows, but survival in so many different ways is absolutely the one thing the constant that I come back to. And I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs about this. I belong to the Entrepreneurs Organization, the international organization, and we share our war stories. And the life of an entrepreneur is idolized in some ways, and then so very few people can actually pull it off. And I'm not saying that I'm a special person. Maybe I was just made to do this, and I lucked into it. A lot of people can play guitar, and I certainly can't. And I would say that some of them had the internal passion, however that was manufactured, to persevere and have bleeding fingers and do the repetition that it takes to be great at it. I wouldn't be cut out for that, but this is something that somehow I fell into and then started to have some real fun with it. And I think that in this business, like I was saying, a lot of people can look at the end product and say, well, that wasn't so hard, was it? But so much goes into it, and it is an emotional roller coaster. And oftentimes clients aren't as diplomatic as they could be in telling us how they feel about certain things. And that's okay. I mean, as long as we know that that's part of the game and we shouldn't take it personally. But sometimes when you really stick your neck out there, you can't help but take some things personally. And we know that we got to get up tomorrow and do the same thing again with the same energy that we have. Absolutely,
man. Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm grateful you're on. Just as expected, this was fun, man. Lots of laughs, and it was a great time. So why don't you share with everybody before we kind of bow out here, how they can get a hold of you and find you guys in case they want to reach out.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I feel like I really dominated things. Weren't there questions you were supposed to ask me?
You covered them all.
Yeah, the Pepper Group. We're a marketing communications firm. As I mentioned, we really work with B2B companies in all different verticals, whether it's technology, service companies, manufacturers, associations, whoever has a message to communicate to an audience, we're there for them. We do everything basically in-house. So we do web development, we do digital marketing, we do video production, animation, anything that helps us, again, tell the story of something. We have clients that are mega clients that give us complex projects, and we have agency of record relationships where companies will really lean on us. Value proposition being that they don't want to put 15 people under their roof, but they can afford what amounts to 2 or 3 people. Mm-hmm. And that's the relationship that we really like. We build a lot of tools for our clients. So it's an interesting solution as opposed to just a one-time creative mm-hmm. piece that we do. So it's kind of fun that way as well. We're at peppergroup.com. I was lucky enough to get that early on, so we didn't have to goof around. And we're located in Palatine, but we love to have clients that are all over the Chicagoland area and even outside of it if it's the right fit. I really say Chicagoland because, of course, body language tells us a lot too when people are looking at things that are very subjective.
Oh, yeah.
We really need to understand how they feel about it, and sometimes the words don't come as easily as that frown or the shoulders or the crossed arms or the looking over at their team and giving a wink. You know, you learn how to read all that stuff.
Exactly.
And hopefully you either benefit and leverage from a positive reaction, or you can diffuse a negative one. And right. Once you realize what the real objection is, and sometimes it can be something very minor that's easy to fix. But when you're long distance relationship, you don't see those dynamics in the room.
Right.
When we're presenting something. So we dig that. So peppergroup.com is all you need to know. And I really appreciate you having me on. I love talking about this. It helps me to remember all the different things that we've worked through. Obviously, I showed you a few that are immensely successful, but not all of them were.
Yeah.
But we really do have a great culture. We've been recognized for the last 7 years as one of Chicago's best places to work. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
That's sweet, man. Congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, cool. Well, I appreciate it again, man. It was fun. It was good seeing you again, and I'd love to have you on again. So, and thanks everybody for tuning in again to this episode of the On Purpose Growth podcast. My name is Brian McDonald from On Purpose Growth, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the On Purpose Growth podcast. Let us know what you thought in the comment section. For more from On Purpose Growth, go to onpurposegrowth.com. Subscribe here at BLTV for all of our content, including the daily Learn About Law podcast, Seize Your Business, Making Real Estate Fun, and Logical Logistics podcast, brought to you by O'Flaherty Law. Thanks for listening.